Welcome everyone to IPDay's webinar Wednesday. I have to tell you all that I'm getting through a sinus infection, so I'm going to not make a big introduction here, but I want to welcome all of you to today's webinar, Mathematics Through the Lens of CCRS. Our facilitator today is Ronald Cruz, no stranger to all of us, and he'll be taking us through this presentation. As you know, your microphones are muted and you are in listen-only mode. Please put your questions in the Q&A section of your screen. And the webinars are recorded and they will be up on the website within 48 hours. Enjoy the webinar. Ron?
Thank you very much, June. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this afternoon's webinar Wednesdays. I know your time is very valuable. Our webinar today is going to really focus on kind of like going back full circle with the college and career readiness standards. We've done quite a number of things throughout last year's school year and also this year with new resources, materials, trainings that are focusing on college and career readiness standards. The reason why we're doing this is, again, to reinforce our existing knowledge of the college and career readiness standards and get some more teaching strategies and tools with the help of manipulatives and things like that to help us, because now with the release of TABE 11 and 12, we're now having to kind of review back, because that's where TABE 11 and 12 is really based upon, is the college and career readiness standards. So we're going to look at that, revisit why we have to look mathematics slightly differently or teach it differently, because it's now being assessed in a different fashion. So if we are to expect any, significant gains in our student performance, there has to be a slight shift in the way we present mathematics that would allow our students to understand and demonstrate their knowledge more in the TABE 11 and 12 assessment. So we're going to do a little bit of a background again on the CCRS and then focus on the three shifts in the standards, which is focus, coherence, and rigor. Specifically in this webinar, I'm going to try to show you and kind of emphasize, or what's the correct word? I wanted to highlight how you're going to be able to really show the shift in these standards in your daily instruction and what it means for other lessons that you're going to be presenting to your students. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. As a precursor to this webinar, I wanted to take a moment for you to watch this short video clip about the emerging trends, not just in education, but in the labor market. And then we'll probably have a better idea or better picture of why college and career readiness standards was started to begin with. So please enjoy the short video clip.
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of people that understand that the future of work is going to look very different from what it is now. So keep watching. Let's see where we're heading. It's also exciting, right? Siri will recognize your voice even if you're 5 meters away from your phone. That new chatbot feels totally real. Self-driving cars are no longer fiction. You can analyze your DNA. You tried flying that drone for the first time, and you're thinking of buying a smart speaker to make your life so much easier. A few years from now, and that's something like 3 years, not 30, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, mass 3D print, biotechnology, chatbots, virtual reality, deep learning, drones, augmented reality, smart objects will all be deeply enrooted in our everyday lives, just like computers, phones, or electricity are for us today. Oh well, is this really going to happen? And if it does, you'll adapt when the time comes, right? Life is good. You love your job. You've been working for this established company for a few years. You're comfortable in your position. You know what you're good at. People like you. And that last presentation you gave got you some amazing reactions. You're safe with your company. In the meantime, you see an article or two speculating on the future of jobs. McKinsey published a report stating that 45% of all current tasks could be automated with present technology. The World Economic Forum estimates that 33% of jobs in 2020 2020 don't even exist yet. But what do they know, right? You've got time. Oh, look, the supermarket just introduced self-cashier machine. You're at the airport checking in luggage. What the heck happened to all the real people at the check-in desk? Gone. Replaced by machines. But it's only the low-skilled jobs, right? Nope, think again. In 2012, there were 150,000 humans working on Wall Street. 3 years later, automation has cut that number down to 100,000. That's 1/3 gone. But it's only the mathematical and scientific jobs, right? Nope, think again. This Japanese insurance company, Fukuoka Mutual Life Insurance, is already replacing all its human insurance claim workers with an AI system that will handle customers more efficiently. See these articles? They're written by algorithms, and we can't tell the difference with human written content. And thinking of converting yourself to being an online poker player? Too late. There's an AI that can already beat humans at it. Those journalists, tax consultants, marketeers, technicians, knowledge workers, lawyers, even the person editing this video right now will to some extent have been impacted or automated by technology in a couple of years. And what have you been doing? Probably watching Netflix. And the problem is the machines don't wait. And the machines, they don't watch Netflix. So what are the forces at play here? Basically, there's 10 million developers out there using increasingly simple and cheap technology to build new products and services. Some as young as 12 are already coding the future. Even that safe company you work for is increasingly under outside threat. And it's not just the Google, Amazon, Facebooks, and Apples of the world that I'm talking about. There are now tens of thousands of startups out there eating away at all sorts of jobs. Now, are they creating many jobs in the process? Let's look at some stats. Travel a bunch of years back to when Kodak ruled the world of photography. They were worth $38 billion and employed 140,000 people. That's approximately $270,000 per employee.
Our people work with pride to make Kodak a creative and innovative company.
Fast forward to recent times, YouTube sold for $1.65 billion with a mere 65 employees. That's $25 million per employee. Instagram, which had 13 employees and was sold for $1 billion. That's $77 million per employee. WhatsApp sold for $19 billion with 55 employees. That's a staggering $345 million per employee. So how is this all possible? Technology has allowed the emergence of what we call exponential organizations. These are exponentially fast-growing companies that leverage technology and require less employees, but more tech-savvy ones.
You will find that we are technology optimists. We believe that technology is a major driver of change in the world.
And as software continues to eat up the world, more companies are trying to replicate these exponential companies, hire less people, but grow exponentially through technology. As this happens, job roles are slowly disappearing and being replaced by skill sets. Employers require you to know an ever-growing number of new and ever-changing fundamental skills in order to use the technologies they've implemented. Master the fundamentals and you can master the rest. A digital skills gap is growing for both mid-skill and high-skill level jobs. Before you know it, you've become irrelevant. But wait, what's this doomsday message? There's actually a way to leverage technology before it leverages you. And in fact, it's never been easier to do so. This might sound kind of corny, but it starts with the right state of mind. It starts with having a growth mindset, where you have the desire and the confidence that you can learn anything. Shift your thinking on how these technologies will rattle and mutate, but enrich your work life. Because yes, if you play your cards right, technology will make your work life and your life in general much, much better. The fact is that technology will actually remove boring, repetitive jobs from your way, but only if you understand the fundamentals. And you have no excuse not to do so. How can you stay relevant if you can't talk the lingo? How can you stay relevant if you can't execute? Can you talk tech? Can you talk APIs? Can you talk code? Can you talk data? While slow educational institutions are struggling to keep up, that's not an excuse. Train yourself. Take your education in your own hands. Learn to code. Learn about behavioral psychology, automation tools, playing with data, user experiences. Be curious. And if you're an employer, train your people. Online and offline courses have never been more readily available or rich in content. It's time to build something. Your greatest credential in this new era is your output of stuff. Proof of your awesomeness. A website, a blog, a prototype, a simple data model. It's time to build cool stuff and showcase it. It's time to start learning. It's time for your growth.
All right. It's, I understand that it is not your typical video where you have to, you can place like, it's not like a 3-minute video, but what this video shows you is how technology is really threatening the labor market and how it's changing the course of business of the people that we're sending our students to. In adult education, we are in the business of putting people to work. We're educating them in adult basic education, getting them a GED diploma, getting into college and career pathway, or getting them into a career technical program where they can have the training that's required so that they can go straight into the workforce, so that they become hireable or employable in the near future. So the reason why the college and career readiness standard was developed is because there has been this type of disruption in the labor market. And this is not the first time that we had to revamp our entire curriculum, or revamp our entire set of standards in order to respond to the demands of the job market. It has happened in the past. So way in the past, 18th century, agricultural revolution, when we're all just planting, just a lot of agriculture. There's another change in the labor market happened in the early 20th century, when we started discovering about the steam engine. That technology altered the way of business. There were like a lot of jobs that were lost, and a lot of jobs that were transformed into new jobs in the early 20th century. And then that happened again in the mid 20th century when we started inventing the computers. And so the computers have now started taking over the jobs, changing the way we work. It increased the efficiency of what we do our work. So then by that time, we also had a change in curriculum. And then last but not least, we are now in a world where we're living is that I call it the age of smart objects, is what I kind of term, I kind of help myself grapple with the changes in there, where everything is becoming smart. You've got a smart TV, you got a smart, you got a smartphone, you've got you even have technology, a smartwatch that really monitors your heart rate and things like that. So it really changed the way we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. So think about that in the workplace, that these technologies that are being invented are also altering the demands of the workplace. So in return, we as educators need to react the same way. We can't teach the old stuff expecting our students will be able to cope up with the new skill sets that's required in the current labor market. So let's just talk about certain data points that really emphasize or really reiterate what I just explained. That according to the World Economic Forum, that by 2020 there will be 7.1 million jobs that will be lost. They're not completely lost, but they're going to be, they will look slightly different than when they are now, or completely different than when they are now. And when they're saying is that a lot of the white collar office and administrative positions will be severely impacted, because with the use of smart machines, smart objects, that's just going to increase the efficiency of white collar jobs, that a lot of them will be transitioned into different type of jobs. According to the World Economic Forum as well, there will be 8 jobs that will be in demand by 2020. So if you look at these jobs listed here, the 8 jobs, what do you think is the core subject area that is common between all of these jobs? If you're thinking mathematics, you are right, because data analysts, you need to learn how to look at graphs and analyze graph and use the graphs to help you problem solve. Look at data and analyze trends and things like that. Computer architecture, even in sales, we do a lot of mathematics there, because even in sales and retail, we do a lot of mathematics there. Managerial positions, product design, measurement, and geometry goes into product design. In human resources and organizational development, and also regulatory and government relation may not be so much math heavy, but there's still going to be impacting, there's still some impact of math, such as in human resources, you have salaries and employee figures and things like that that you have to deal with. And in terms of government relation, you have your budget that you have to manage with. So really, all of these jobs, the 8 jobs that will be in demand by 2020, are jobs that are heavy in math, if not requires math as a basic skill. So we need to start kind of thinking ahead and moving forward with a mindset that, hey, there's going to be a lot of things that my students need to learn. I may not be able to teach all of them right now, but I need to teach the fundamental skills so that when they move into these in-demand work or jobs, that they'll be able to learn the rest. So that's really the underlying message, is that going back and reinforcing the fundamentals in mathematics will eventually help our students become more successful. And that's being reinforced by the tape 11 and 12, that the way we ask questions in the past are no longer rote type memory or mechanical type of answering questions where, okay, I have to add fractions or multiply fractions or maybe find the least common denominator. Those are gone. A lot of the questions that they're being asked in both the TABE and GED are real world problems, word problems, situational type of problems where students have to take their basic knowledge of mathematics and apply it in different settings. So really and truly, one of the best ways to do that is to address the demands of the labor market is really to incorporate some hard skills into your class, which is really that core mathematics. Of course, we have to, in any ABE class, we have to teach writing as well. We have, in GED class, we have to teach writing. Now, maybe not programming and accounting, but in this slide, we're just talking about these are skills that are hard, that you have to go into class and learn these things. And then we talk about soft skills. Soft skills is not really kind of like the core of our standards, but it is highlighted in our curriculum frameworks for adult basic education, that we have to talk about critical thinking and communication and problem solving, and those are going to be, and technology in order for our students to be successful. So we also have to have room in our daily instruction to incorporate those skills, because you never know, your student right now could be looking for a job. There are also skills that what we call transferable skills, which are also these are what I call skills that gives you biggest bang for the buck. So meaning these skills can transfer whatever field you have. Just like I said, critical thinking and problem solving are 2 transferable soft skills that can be applied into any field. So it could be you can be working in business, or you can be working in technology, or you can be working in food and agriculture industry. These critical thinking and problem solving skills are still necessary in those in those job types or job clusters. And then you go into job-specific skills. So those are the types of skills that you learn either on the job or you go on training or specialized training to learn them. So let's focus on the standards itself and see how our standards is helping us achieve those goals into making our students more marketable into the labor market. One of the things that the shifts that were highlighted in the college and career readiness standard is the shift in focus. So in terms of that, in the past, we used to teach several types of math, several different concepts and things like that. So right now, instructor needs to really, instead of teaching all of it or teaching a broad range of concepts and skills, we need to narrow that scope significantly and then spend a little bit more time in explaining the mathematics and going deeper and going into more problem solving or applying certain mathematical concepts in different types of scenarios. Focus on the major work at each level. Like if you look at your ABE mathematics curriculum frameworks, or if you have the handy dandy ABE mathematics curriculum matrix, you can see clearly in each of the columns there which are the major works at each level. Like when you go into level 2, you'll see that level is very heavy on basic mathematics, fractions, numeracy. That's because that's the major work at that level. When you go into level 3, you have more analytical type of skills that are being applied, such as maybe the second degree polynomials is already there. Maybe you're now looking into other areas in geometry, such as areas and volumes. Volumes and surface area, I meant. So really, you're looking at each of the levels of ABE and even in GED, and really focusing is like, what is the concentration of knowledge and concepts in this level that I need to spend a little bit more time on, and not get so bogged down with outliers that are outlying concepts out there that may or may not connect to previous knowledge. Select, prioritize your content. Look at the table 11 and 12 blueprints. Refer to the ABE mathematics curriculum matrix and prioritize the content. So yeah, you have to sequence them because mathematics builds from one to the other, but you also can decide as to, okay, let me spend a little bit more time on ordering rational numbers. Why is that? So not only for mastery, but also applying that into the real world. Like, why is that important? Why is it important for me to know how to order numbers well? And also pointing out that there are other skills that are needed in order for you to order. It could be rounding, it could be converting a fraction to a decimal. So really, when you say when you say ordering rational numbers, yeah, that's one skill, but in order for you to accomplish that skills, there's many, many smaller skills that students need to understand in order to successfully order numbers from, let's say, from least to greatest or in increasing fashion. So looking at your content, knowing their content as a big picture, looking at the ABE math curriculum matrix, and really when you pace yourself and create and use the math matrix as your pacing guide, you can now see and really assign the amount of time you have to spend in each major concept, depending on what are the underlying or fundamental skills that are being applied in each one. So let's take, for example, addition. So this is something that a lot of educators just really take for granted, and they don't spend so much time because a lot of our adult education students already know how to add, right? It's like, why do I have to break down addition to my students in a different fashion? Or why do I have to spend a little bit more time just teaching the basic of adding whole numbers to my students if I can use that time later on where I need it? Well, the thing is, if you don't present, addition well and show them kind of like the basic understanding, the fundamental concept of addition, how does that look like? Not just the procedure, then that same skill can be applied later on when they're simplifying fractions, when they're adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, when they're looking for the slope, when they're looking for patterns. A lot of the things that you do that you apply, a lot of the habits of mind that you apply in basic addition skills replicate itself through more complicated mathematics concepts. And I'm going to show you that later on. Before I go in and to show you this example, I just wanted to point out that I provided you with a workbook to come along with this particular webinar. So let me just switch the view to the IPDAY website. No, actually, I'm going to switch the view to the workbook. So this is the workbook that that you can download from the webinar page, and I'm going to show you how to download it. But let me just show you first the workbook. So this workbook, as you can see, has a table of contents, and everything that I'm going over today that might not have enough, super a lot of time to allocate is clearly spelled out in this workbook with your own with additional activities for you to apply. So if you are somebody that has to miss portion of this webinar, or you're just getting this webinar and reviewing it at your tail end, and you wanted the same interaction or interactivity as if you're actually participating right now, then you have to look at the workbook so that you can do the activity while you're reviewing the webinar that is archived later on. So this works really well, especially if you're also doing like a small professional learning communities at your site or your district, where a lot of your teachers will get together and focus on a particular math topic. Then this could be a really good tool for you that you can use. It provides very other things more, like in this one, I'll show you a strategy next, and then I'm giving you more templates for you to use so that you can apply the same strategy. A lot of these are colored and in PDF, and it's got lots of activities that I incorporated here and lots of templates. So please take that, take the workbook and use it to your advantage, because we created and we spent a lot of time putting together this workbook so that it's not a one-stop or one-time, one-shot PD. You can continuously grow by reviewing this webinar and also going back and using the templates and the activities that I included in the workbook for you or for your students. In order for you to download the workbook and also the PowerPoint slides for this webinar, all you got to do is go into ABE on the ABE tab and then go under webinars and look for this particular topic, which is mathematics through the lens of CCRS. If you click on that, it will lead you to the section at the bottom left corner where you see presentation PDF in green font and the workbook PDF in also in green font. That is where you're going to be able to find our PDF documents, the workbook, and the PowerPoint slides. So let me pause a little bit and see if we have any questions, June, that may be lingering there. Okay, so there seem to be no questions. And I know June will just, chime in immediately if we have any questions, but feel free to ask your questions because we want to make sure that you are getting all the information that you need in this webinar. So let me just show you this simple trick or simple technique or simple strategy that I use to illustrate addition in both visual and numeric fashion to my students. And again, additional activities are provided to you in your workbook so that you can replicate this activity and apply it with your class. So let's say, for example, we got 7 plus 6. So yeah, very simple, 7 plus 6, that's 13. A lot of your students can do this mentally on top of their heads. Some may have to write it out, but it's really helpful to show how the basic concept of addition requires understanding of place value in order to apply addition more effectively. So in this case, you have two numbers, the 7 and the 6, and they're both in the ones place. But when you add these two numbers together, what you come up with is a number that is in tens place. Okay, so you're moving from one place value to another, and understanding the place value will allow your students to understand. Okay. Allow your students to understand why do we have to carry 1 in multi-digit or carry a number in multi-digit addition. So let's take, for example, 7 plus 6. I got this strategy from the internet, and a lot of the teachers call it make a 10. So if you're given two numbers, we ask the students, okay, go ahead and illustrate the numbers separately. And we use these 10, base 10 template where you can see there's 10 squares in each template, and then you can just shade in the squares if you want, or if you want, in this case, put in circles in different colors. And then do this mentally. Use this manipulative. You can use colored counters as manipulatives to use this strategy. But I know it's simple, but I know it takes time, but the payoff in understanding later on is going to be tremendous. And I can guarantee you that because I've done it, and I've seen other teachers do it as well. So if you have a 7 plus 6, what you simply do is try to make a 10. And just in this case, I move those 3 circles that are yellow, and over here to the left, I have a set of 10, and then to the right, I have 3. So I see, okay, that's 13. Okay, very simple. Okay, and then let's try again. So so now I'm showing them what's happening in the real world in terms of a manipulative, or it could be done on the board. You can draw it if you don't have colored counters. And then I'm also showing them mathematical, addition, the numerical way of adding the numbers. And then right now I'm showing it in a horizontal fashion, but you can also do this in vertical fashion. And I think I like vertical fashion even more. Just in order to save space and to make the slide look good, I picked horizontal fashion. Okay, anyway, so moving on. So really the concept of base 10 is really reinforcing not just the concept of addition, but the concept of place value. That once you already were able to form a 10, and that means you graduate to the next place value, okay? So this is just the next slide that shows that. And then once after I've seen that, I'm gonna show my student, okay, why does my teacher keep mentioning place value, place value, place value? Okay, well, because place value plays a bigger role, and not just in addition, but in all operations. So I showed them, okay, this is really the structure of the place value of numbers and how you graduate from one place value to another. So when you have 10 ones, that's technically 1 tens, and then you have 10 tens, that's actually 100. And so speaking in those terms, using the vocabulary correctly, I know it may sound confusing at first to your students, but using that language allows transference of knowledge and concept in both numeric, symbolic, and also in verbal. So showing these things, and I'm showing you all where I got these images, but there's different ways for you to show place value to your students. So you can do the forward place value from least to greatest. You can use houses, because really and truly in this, I like this so much because they put in all of the hundreds, tens and ones in a house, and then on everybody that goes with thousands belong to another house, which has also 3 members, just like the ones house. And then you've got the millions house. So there's lots of, the houses build upon each other, and it allows the students to see how numbers are categorized. And some teachers want to use manipulatives and just show how each place value is represented as a manipulative. So I put that here as well. Or you can do the backwards fashion where you go from highest to least. And as you can see, the first and the last, or the first quadrant and the fourth quadrant images that I'm showing you right now shows 2 different representations. And then it also correlates place value with the operations of multiplication and division. So I'm not just teaching one concept here, I'm teaching multiple concepts. And by the way, we started with the concept of addition. So really and truly, in a short amount of time, your instruction becomes more coherent, and then also your instruction becomes more maximized. You're maximizing the instructional time that you have with your students, because not a lot of our students stick with us throughout. Okay, sometimes they will drop off, or sometimes they're ready to take their test, or sometimes they got a job. We can't really control when our students are in our classrooms, but we can make sure that whatever we teach them actually leads to these other connections for them to continue learning long before they're gone in our classrooms. So this is another video I want to show you that kind of just I found was a cute video I saw online that helps my students kind of remember place value a little bit more, and it's got a little modern tune to it.
So many ways to write numbers. Here are 3 types. Expand a simple word. Expand a simple word. Expand it looks like this. Take the value of each digit. Starting at the left. Starting at the left. Stand up for it's easy. Just the regular way that you see. Numbers and then word for means to write out the line here using words. Just one to the right hand side, it's fast. This one to the left, one send in mind. Easy as I get. Place like you.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause it right there, and I hope you see the point. This, it's a very visual way of showing place value, allowing my students to remember, and then suffer from last song syndrome from Taylor Swift. But I'm able to achieve the goal of really just trying to show and allowing my students to kind of get familiarized with place value and spending a little bit more time showing them place value. And then another thing that we wanted to focus on, I'm going to switch a little bit on the topic, is focusing on numeracy a little bit more, and re-emphasizing properties of operations. So, and I'm just going to try to reminisce back when I was taught properties of operations by my teacher in elementary school. My teacher taught properties of operations in half an hour. And then we took a little short guided practice afterwards, and then we moved on to the next topic. That's not really a very good way of teaching properties of operations, because after that day that we talked about properties of operations, I forgot about it. And I complain a lot about with my students when, I would teach them one thing one day, and then they'll come back the next day and act like they never learned anything from the previous day, or they probably slept and forgot everything, But it is true to some extent, because if you do not allow yourself to kind of connect properties of operations to other math concepts or what it's going to lead into, then that skill is going to be forgotten immediately, right away, because our students right now, they've got a lot of distractions. And we were trying to fight against that. We're fighting against distractions. We're fighting against real life. We're fighting against technology, you know what I'm saying? So really we have to do our best to really allow our students to kind of remember, because retention is one problem that we have in adult education. Is we're teaching them the stuff, but they don't seem to be retaining a lot of it. So the key in teaching properties of operations is to not teach it all at one time in one day and forget about it. So when you present properties of operations like commutative, associative property, identity property, inverse property, and also distributive property, usually I would chunk these together. So I would probably teach commutative property with addition when I teach addition. Okay, once my students have mastered addition, I'm gonna revisit commutative property again, and then take that a step further and introduce the concept of grouping symbols, such as what they see in the associative property. And then so those two are lingering topics. So I'm going to show them word problems that include grouping symbols, word problems that where they can apply the commutative property or simplify an equation where the commutative property step would be essential. I'll show them that, then move on and then move on to other math topics. But later on, I'm going to pick back up on commutative and associative property. When I get into multiplication, I'm going to show them identity property and inverse property. And it's also very good if I can start bringing in a little bit of fractions in there, because that's really important when showing the inverse property. Then we'll just set when we'll set all the four identities we've discussed. So I mean all the four properties we've discussed so far aside, and go on and teach other concepts, and then pull properties of operations again in distributive property when we go into other topics in geometry or other topics in statistics where distributive property really applies itself. Or when I get into polynomials or simple or binomials, that's when the distributive property is really, really important. So, because really the bottom line here is, what I'm trying to say is that don't teach the properties of operation in one day or in one sitting and never pick back up again on these properties later on. It's better to chunk these, and it's better to break these topics apart, so to allow the students to digest each property in granular pieces that will help them retain that skill over and over. And every time I bring up the topic of a property, I review everything else and all the other properties that we've already discussed. The second shift that the teachers need to make in their instruction is coherence. So there's got to be really a strong connection between what you did today and what you're going to do tomorrow, or in one activity to another. You can't jump from one topic and switch up and go to geometry, and then after geometry maybe I'll do a little bit of proportions, and then I'm going to do statistics tomorrow because it's the Super Bowl and we're going to talk about statistics. Students love to see stats on each team or each individual player. So yeah, not really going to work in terms of coherence. According to the College and Career Readiness Standards, we need to plan how we're going to teach mathematics so that it is very seamless, that it builds upon each other, that if a student is out tomorrow and come back the next day, that student will still be able to pick up what he or she didn't get in the day that they were absent. If you're teaching in a coherent fashion, students are able to retain knowledge better. So in the coherence area, or in this shift, we need to create kind of like a sequencing, of topics where there is a strong coherence from topic to topic, from day to day, from week to week, or month to month, if you do like unit plans and things like that. And we have created a really powerful tool for you so that you don't have to keep flipping multiple pages throughout your curriculum frameworks or your book. We've created and also released the ABE Mathematics Curriculum Matrix, so to guide you in this pacing and sequencing of your lessons, because it's really, really important. Okay? So, and then these are just the things that coherence emphasizes, that, yeah, again, new concepts, when you introduce any new concept, present it as an extension of learning of something that they've previously taught. A lot of us that teach in K-12, we hear this a lot, is activating prior knowledge. So activating prior knowledge is a technique or a strategy in the classroom, and usually done at the beginning of class, to access what students already know a particular topic and use that knowledge to propel them to the next. So really and truly, this is just re-emphasizing that strategy, that it is a best practice. It's good for retention. It's good for our students. So let me show you kind of like coherence in kind of like, if I'm going to illustrate this to you. So one way to teach coherence is to connect numeracy and geometry. So in this case, when I'm teaching multiplication of whole numbers, I would show them in manipulatives, and I will also show them how does that look like in area, and I can represent 1 as my length, one number and the other number as my width, and there you go. I've got the formula for area. So I'm teaching multiple concepts at the same time. And then so when I get into the topic in area of geometry and area of other types of polygons, then they'll see the idea and the relationship between multiplication and all of that. In a lot of our material that we release with IPDAY, we use this area method as well in two-digit multiplication, okay? So in this case, you take two numbers, you can break it down by place value, and then once you have broken down into place value, apply the properties of numbers to come up with the areas of each one. See that? That's kind of like distributive property, right? To explain why 16 times 25 is equal to 400, okay? And then, and I've got additional activities in the workbook here to show you that as well. For all of you who need more practice and you want to try out the area method of multiplication, here's a worksheet here that you can pull up that you can try with your students to practice that skill with your students. And also with multiplying with three-digit numbers. In three-digit numbers, it gets more challenging when you have to illustrate it. So usually I would use real manipulatives in here now if I have base 10 blocks, and hundreds blocks. So it's going to allow me to show, okay, what's that concept of regrouping and things like that. So I will show you, okay, 124 times 3 can be illustrated in manipulatives just like this. Okay? So it's 3 sets of 124. That's what it means, showing them what that means. And then not really going into the algorithm yet, but just showing, okay, how many ways can I group these things? Can I group the hundreds together, the tens together, or the ones together, and things like that? And then show, again, look at this. This is distributive property that we're applying over here. So multiple concepts being taught, and now if I multiply 3 to each one, and then add them all together, I get 372. So now with this illustration, I use this illustration now to teach them the common algorithm for multiplication. So, as you can see on the right side of the screen, you've got your multiplication, 124 times 3, and all of that, where you have to carry the numbers and move it up and things like that. So they see what's happening between, okay, I'm able to form on this side, in the ones, there's a 10 here, right here, that I can stack together and move to the other column or to the tens column. That explains that 1 that is right here in blue. So they can see, okay, what's happening on paper is really kind of like a manifestation of what you're doing in the real world or with the manipulatives. So you can do this with double-digit multiplication. That technique will also explain to you, okay, why do we have to add 0 to the second row when to the second row of products when we are multiplying 2-digit by 3-digit numbers? Or why do we have to indent it and things like that? So showing them visually what's happening will allow them to understand and answer the question like that normally they ask us when we're showing them the algorithm. What happens in a typical classroom is that teachers jump straight ahead into the algorithm just like this, what you're seeing right now, and never bothered about showing the manipulative or showing a physical representation or a visual representation of what's happening. So a lot of all of these are really being illustrated here. So I've got all of these slides for you, also replicated in your workbook that you can use with your students. Just like in this case, this is a 2-digit by 3-digit multiplication. And I'm in here in this video, and you can just cut this video and show this to your students that here's how we illustrate 124 times 13. Yeah, it's a lot of illustration, but that's just a bunch of copy and paste that I did on the screen and then did some animation there. But oh my goodness, the realization of what the students can see, it's like, okay, and now they understand place value from one to the other, then they don't ask so many questions about why procedures are such when multiplying multi-digit numbers. This slide is here for you to just show you again, clearly show you the relationship between the real world manipulative, the algorithm that you're showing them in both vertical and horizontal. In this case, I showed them both vertical and horizontal. In the vertical, the good thing about the horizontal way of solving it is that they can clearly see, oh, hey, in this box area, I'm applying a property here, right? And that's what we call the distributive property. So we're able to review previous concepts that we've done in the past. So moving on to, so this slide just automates itself and things like that. So you can kind of illustrate to your students how again, why are procedures done as such in mathematics. And last but not the least, I want to focus a little bit on rigor. Rigor is not so much as making your concepts a little bit more difficult. It's just focusing less on just the procedure, but focusing on why we do things as this way and explaining more than just how to get the answer. Spending more time on the concept itself, the fundamental skill, and the application is really should be what's happening in the classroom. Look at different perspectives, apply the concept in multiple settings, maybe use geometry in sports, but then later on I'll use geometry in fractions. So make those connections in different settings. This is one application that shows you rigor in multiplication of fractions. Doesn't have to be hard, but it has to be something that you can apply in multiple different concepts. So when you have what you have here is kind of like I use a manipulative here called the geoboard. And I'm using the geoboard to illustrate multiplication of fractions in order to solve this word problem. Okay, so in order to show you first, I'm going to show you, okay, show me 3/4 using the geoboard. And then there you go, I'm showing you 3/4. The online geoboard allows you to color and shade in, so please experiment on that. The website link is on the bottom right corner of the screen. And then if you want to take half of that original recipe, which is 3/4 cup of butter, then I just divide it into 2 parts now. So you see that, and then I shaded it one section because I don't need the top part. I just need the bottom part, or I just need one part out of the 1/2. So once you divide it into there, and you can clearly see, okay, how many parts do I have total with all these lines? Well, you can clearly see that there are 8 parts. And then the colors where they overlap, that's really the part that you need, so which part, in this case, if you're looking at this figure, how many parts are colored with both yellow and red? And you can clearly say, oh, there's 3 of them. So that's 3 out of a total of 8 parts, which kind of which solves our problem altogether. And answering this problem is in a very visual fashion, rather than just going straight ahead and showing numerical fashion. So there's a little bit more visual, a little bit more fun, more hands-on way of solving a multiplication problem in fractions. So I also gave you additional word problems here to see that so you can apply the same concept. And there's another $1 million question. Why do we have to, when we're dividing fraction, why do we have to flip that second number? Just like what we have in here. Why is that? Well, in this case, I answered that question by solving a word problem for you. And so here's a word problem, and I'm going to give you time to read this later on. But in this case, I'm just going to solve the top portion. But if you have, let's say, a 6-foot decking board and you're cutting it into 1/3, that's essentially 6 divided by 1/3. And in order for you to do that, you take a decking board, and I visually cut them into 6 because there you say they're 6 foot, so I have to show you that there's six feet of cutting of decking board, and then I'm cutting each on each section by a third, so just like as illustrated here. Okay, so now, and then I show my students, this is what's happening. And now the students can clearly see, okay, I see now that you're not really dividing here. The number of pieces is actually multiplying. So that explains why I have to flip that second fraction, because the only way for me to get 18 parts is for me to flip that second fraction and change the operation to multiplication. So when I show what's happening in the real world, and then I show them, okay, here's how we do it in math, students are able to make the connection between the mathematics in, you know, the numerical manipulations and procedures and algorithms with what's happening in the real world, and able to, oh, I see that now. So a lot of light bulbs keep popping, you know, in the heads of your students. So I extended that by doing another word problem, which you can do at a later time. So we've reached into the point where I just wanted to focus what you can see in your workbook, that there are additional worksheets, there's enlarged images, so your PowerPoint slides will not show an enlarged version of certain parts and images, especially the illustrations that I showed you. So you'll see that in the workbook. Additional visual aids were added to it, and it adds activity instructions. I added a little bit more problem-solving techniques there. And then I put in all these templates that I use. And if you like the video that I showed you earlier, or if you like the video that the Taylor Swift song on place value, the links to those videos are also included in the PDF version. And the good thing about that PDF version is you don't have to copy and paste or retype that web address. On the PDF version, you can just click on the link and it'll lead you directly to the website. So really cool stuff. So please spend some time checking out that workbook. So now I want to also talk to you about what's out there in the IPDAY world, in the IPDAY website. Just keep in mind, we just wrapped up our fall workshops focusing on TABE 11 and 12 and a little bit on GED. But really the main focus of IPDAY in the upcoming year, because we're hearing a lot of feedback from teachers, is all about TABE 11 and 12. TABE 11 and 12. So we are, IPDAY as an organization is responding to this need. So we just wanted to let you know that the new TABE e-learning modules have already been released and is now available through your portal account. So you can go to your portal account, go to e-training catalog, and from the e-training catalog, you can access all of these TABE e-learning modules. Okay, so we have the TABE recertification e-learning module, and then I don't know if the interpreting the scores module is out already, but that's something that, that's also we found was very high demand in with our teachers right now, and also everybody that wants to be certified or is involved with TABE 11 and 12. And as you know, we are continually updating our lesson plans and adding more to the inventory of stuff that we have in the great website of IPDAY. So we've got, check out our new lesson plans there. I know Anne has added additional lesson plans. We also have grab and go videos. They're out there for you. Those, they do not lose value. They continually, you can use them year after year because it reinforces fundamental skills. So those grab and go videos are here to stay, and we're probably going to add more grab and go videos for you as we develop more materials and look at the math matrix and see if there are any gaps in there or any areas in the math curriculum that we haven't addressed so far. And again, just like I say, Webinar Wednesdays, we've got the toolkits, we've got the handbook for GED, and most importantly, you have access to the ABE Math Curriculum Matrix. If you have not tuned in into my previous webinar, which is we went over the TABE overlay. If you don't know that, we just released the TABE overlays for the ABE Math Matrix, which highlights the different low, medium, and high emphasis areas of the TABE 11 and 12 on the same matrix. So check it out, and because I think I'm seeing a lot more teachers are getting more into the TABE. That one is more apt into. So if you can see the darker cells on the matrix are going to be your high emphasis one. So going back to what I told you again on focus is you have to really prioritize your content. And in order for you to prioritize your content in college and career readiness, use the tool that is out there and is available for you, which is the new TABE overlay. And I'm also, lastly, I'm very, very excited before I turn this to June, very, very excited to give you a little bit of an announcement that the GED performance level matrix is coming out, and it's coming out very, 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 very soon. I think we've already scheduled webinars preparing for the rollout of this of the GED matrix. So please stay tuned. Keep posted on this, because this is going to come out anytime soon. We're just doing some final touches. We're doing some layout fixes and color scheme alignments and things like that. So very, very minor, but the core of the work is already done and ready for release. So please be on the lookout for that. And then also the release of the ABE study guides or learning objects. More information on that. Please stay tuned on the emails that you get from IPDay, because that's where you're going to get the updates for this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to June Rawl for our webinar evaluation.
Ron, thank you very much. Now you will see the feedback that's on the screen right now. Your opinion really matters to us. So if you could just take a minute to answer these 3 short questions, we would appreciate hearing from you. While you're doing that, I just want to remind you that our next webinar, scheduled for February 13th, will be particular for those serving in the correction settings. All of you who are serving in the correction facilities. Alan Richardson from the DOC will be facilitating this webinar for us. The title will be Strategies for Integrating the Compass 100 Requirements into Everyday Academic Lessons. It's a part 1 of a part 2 series. So if you're serving in those facilities, we hope that you'll be able to join us on February 13th. Until then, we wish you a great rest of the day, and thank you for spending your Wednesday afternoon with us.
Thank you very much.